I'm going to go ahead and get us started since it's 11 o'clock, and I want to make sure Reagan has all of her time. So thank you guys so much for being here with us in our Living Well and Basic Balanced Nutrition partnership here to offer you guys a virtual grocery store tour to learn a little bit more about all of that. So a couple of things for you. I will be watching the chat. Reagan will be watching the chat. We'll keep an eye out for you guys. So make sure you're dropping your questions, letting us know what's going on. We do recommend that you double check and make sure that you are muted. That way, none of your background information or sounds are interfering with our presentation. We are recording the session, and then once it's all recorded and edited, we'll add it up to our YouTube channel as well in case you miss anything or you want to go back and see anything later or share with a friend. And then we're going to get this party started. I'm going to turn the time over to Reagan so that she can take it from here. But if you've got any questions, drop them in the chat. And thank you guys so much for being here. Reagan, take it away.
Hey, thank you so much. So yeah, thank y'all so much for letting me be here with y'all this morning. I'm really excited about our virtual grocery store tour today. If you feel comfortable, I'd love to see your beautiful faces. Helps it be a little more interactive and personable, but also if you're eating lunch, I understand that as well. A quick tidbit about me. So my name is Reagan. I am a registered dietitian. I work for a company in town called Basic Balanced Nutrition. I've been there for almost 2 years now. I graduated from Texas A&M several years ago and got my undergrad in nutritional science. I'm a mom to twin boys, and I do apologize. I was trying to figure out how to get my headphones to work, but it's not really working at the moment. So if you hear them in the background, I do apologize for that, but hopefully they'll behave for us today. So quick overview of what we're going to talk about within our grocery store tour. First off, we're going to talk about how to prepare for the store and kind of briefly touch on ways that we can get ready to actually go grocery shopping. But then we'll spend the majority of our time kind of navigating the different sections of the grocery store, and I will also share with y'all some specific items that are some personal favorites as well as other dietitian favorites from our company. And then we'll briefly talk about some money saving tips and tricks for the grocery store. And then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So like Madeline said, if you don't mind just saving your questions for the end, we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. And then also at the end of the presentation, there will be a QR code that you can scan to get the slides from today's presentation. There will also be a grocery list template included to kind of help with organizing your grocery list, as well as a pantry list of some kind of staples that you can keep stocked up in your house. So let's get comfy and start with a little question to kind of get us started here. And I want to know, and type in the chat, what is the biggest hurdle that you encounter when you go grocery shopping? The price, meal planning, finding gluten-free items, yeah. Impulse buys, too many options, understanding labels, just going off my list. Yeah, balancing budget, healthy options, price and finding healthy options, reasonable prices. Yeah, so price kind of seems to be the theme here, figuring out what to get, finding meal planning, choosing the best options. Yeah, that kind of seems to be too many prices. Yeah, too many people in the store. Yeah, that can sometimes be a big one in this town for sure. But yeah, so those are all obviously very common because a lot of people are sharing the same thing. So hopefully we'll get some of those questions answered, hopefully help you be able to go in with a little more confidence next time you go grocery shopping. But again, if we don't cover something, write your questions down and we'll get to them at the end. So let's get started. So before we can actually talk about going into the grocery store and navigating the different sections, we have to prepare for the store. So going into the store without a game plan sets you up for failure, right? There's that saying that if you plan to fail, then you fail to plan. And if you don't have some plan going in, you can feel overwhelmed. You're not sure what to buy or what to make for meals, what you'll need for the week, and you end up spending more on food, which of course leads to paying more and more food waste. So creating a plan can kind of help with mitigating some of those extra expenses. Creating a plan, you can create a plan by figuring out how many meals you need for the week. So this can not doesn't have to be a new meal every single day of the week, right? You can include leftovers. You can include eating out if you have events that week, right? You don't have to plan a new meal for every single day. And if it's too overwhelming to plan, even just plan one meal that you're going to cook this week. It also helps to find staples. So, I was talking about that pantry list that's going to be included when you scan that QR code. So, keeping staples like that in your freezer and in your fridge or in your pantry for days when you don't feel like cooking can be super helpful as well. And then using what you already have to plan out meals. So, if you have um, frozen meat or a box of pasta that needs to be used, plan your meals kind of around what you already have. This is a template. So this would be what that grocery list template is going to be when you again scan that QR code. It's going to look like this. And this is another way that you can kind of help plan to get ready for the grocery store is organizing what you need to get. Because again, if you're just writing on a piece of paper or writing notes on your phone of what you need, you spend so much time going back and forth through the store that you spend more time in there than you need. So creating and organizing the items by the area or the section of the store that they're in. A lot of grocery stores have their own apps that can help you with this as well. So I know HEB, Kroger, and Sam's have options where, and I'm sure Walmart too, that you can add your item to a list and it organizes it by aisle. So it kind of walks you through the store without you having to figure it out yourself. There's also another app called AnyList that is another grocery store app that you can use to help keep track of the things you need and organize it based on sections. So again, you're not spending so much time running around throughout the store. You're able to kind of get in and get out. Now, another thing with meal planning is we want to remember to balance. So when we're figuring out kind of what the meals are we're going to make for the week, this is the structure we want to focus on. Are we making meals that have some carbohydrates, some protein and fats, and then some kind of non-starchy veggie or fiber with them? This is how we want to structure each of our meals ideally. Of course, it doesn't have to be perfect every single day, but ideally, this is the kind of structure we want to do. So making sure when we're going grocery store shopping, we're getting foods that fit these categories so we have options throughout the week. Okay, once we built our list, it's really important to try to stick to it. I always say though to leave room for like, I don't know, like 1 to 3 fun items, because again, you never know if you're walking through the store, there might be something that looks really good or something you want to try. So, leave room for a few fun items, but do your best to stick to the list. One way you can do that too is to avoid going to the grocery store hungry. This can sometimes lead you to get things that you may not need because you're so hungry. You're like, everything sounds good right now. So keep a snack on hand. Have a little snack before you actually go into the grocery store. For some people too, ordering pickup really helps. I know some people prefer to actually go into the store and pick out their own items, but if you get super overwhelmed or get super distracted and it's too much for you, try just doing the pickup because that can be another great option as well. And then actually scheduling out a day to grocery shop and do a little meal prep. You don't have to spend a whole day meal prepping, but just setting aside an hour or so to maybe cook some meat or chop up some veggies and get those ready for you. But scheduling a day, and ideally too, I suggest doing it on the same day each week because that just kind of builds that consistency, builds that routine, and helps kind of make sure that it gets done every single week. Okay, so now that we've kind of briefly talked about how to prep for the grocery store, let's actually go into the store and navigate through the different sections. There is a lot to cover in each section, so I'm just going to kind of touch on the highlights. So if you do have a specific question, write it down or go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll try to get to it at the end. All right, so we are going to start in the produce section. In this section, you're going to find the most color, the most variety, and honestly, some of the most nutrition bang for your buck. Let's first talk about organic versus not organic. You definitely don't have to buy organic to eat well and be healthy. The main difference with organic and non-organic produce is how it's grown, right? So organic produce is grown without any pesticides or fertilizers, but both organic and conventional produce are nutritious and safe to eat. Non-organic options do have some maybe fertilizers or pesticides that they are grown with, but it's at a level that is considered safe for human consumption. So it's definitely not harmful to eat non-organic, and it's definitely not any less nutritious. Next up is convenience. So you do pay for convenience here, but sometimes it's worth it. So buying like those pre-washed salad mixes, chopped veggies, the fruit trays, those can be more expensive per ounce. But if it actually helps you to eat more produce and helps you save time during the week, then it's definitely worth the trade-off, because it's all about what is actually going to be realistic and practical for you during the week. Another tip with the produce section is to rotate options based on what's on sale or what's on season. Because again, there's a lot of produce in that section. You don't definitely have to eat everything. It'd probably all go bad before you could eat everything. So kind of sticking with more of the seasonal produce because it usually tastes better and lasts a little longer and can cost less. So like, for example, if like strawberries are maybe like $6 a pound one week, but the apples are maybe on sale for like $2, go with the apples that week, and that kind of be your fruit option for the week. So kind of just rotating based on that can help keep your grocery list flexible, add variety to your diet, and keep it interesting. Okay, and now I just want to share with y'all some of our dietitian favorites. We love these little mini bell peppers. They're great for snacking. You could also chop them up and put them into a recipe if you need to. I talked about those pre-made salad kits. These are great to just kind of add to any meal or maybe use as a lunch paired with like some protein or some carbs. The fruit trays that are pictured here are also a great option because it's a kind of a variety of fruit that's already cut up and washed and ready to eat. So it's, again, you pay for the convenience, but if it gets you to eat your fruit, it's worth it. And then bananas. We love bananas because they're very versatile. You can do a lot with them. They're great on the go snacks. You could add them to smoothies, make banana bread out of them. So those are a great cheap option for healthy fruit. All right, now let's go through the meat market. So in this section, it's all about protein variety and finding options that fit your taste and your budget and your health goals. So let's first talk about like fresh versus frozen meat options. So fresh meats are great if you plan to cook them soon, but frozen can be just as nutritious and often they're cheaper. A lot of times too, you'll see people that will buy their meat in bulk and then freeze what you don't use right away. And this is a smart way to save money and reduce waste and can also save you a little bit of time when you're grocery shopping. A quick note though to watch out for with the meat section is sodium. We'll talk about sodium a lot in this presentation, but sodium is an area that can kind of sneak up on you, especially if you are buying like those frozen, like pre-seasoned meats or marinated chicken. When you're watching your sodium intake, you want to look for labels that say lower sodium or no salt added. You can even rinse meat before using it to kind of reduce the salt content a bit. Next, let's talk about grass-fed versus conventional meats. So you'll see terms sometimes like grass-fed or pasture-raised, maybe free-range like poultry. These meats tend to have a slightly higher omega-3 fatty acid content, and they may be a little bit leaner, but both grass-fed and conventional meats are rich in protein and iron and B vitamins, and they can be just as nutritious as grass-fed. Grass-fed tends to be more expensive because again, it kind of goes back to how the animal was raised and treated. So it can be a little more expensive, and there's really no compelling evidence that grass-fed is significantly more nutritious. And so it's usually, at least in my opinion, it's usually not worth the cost. However, if you enjoy the flavor of grass-fed meat, if you like to support those practices and it fits into your budget, that's great. But nutritionally speaking, you don't have to buy grass-fed to eat well. It's more important to focus on variety. Let's talk about fat content and marbling. So when you're in the meat section and you're looking at cuts of beef, you'll notice there's little white streaks running through the meat, and that's called marbling. A little marbling means more tenderness and flavor, but it also means more saturated fat, which is the kind of fat that we really want to limit in our diet. So if you're trying to choose leaner options, you want to look for cuts that have less of that visible fat. So looking for words like loin or round, as opposed to things like rib or chuck that tend to be a little higher in fat. For ground meats, you'll see percentages like 90-10, 80-20, and those numbers show the ratio of lean meat to fat. So the higher the first number, the leaner the meat is. And then you may also notice when you're looking at the meats, a USDA grade on beef labels for like prime, choice, and select. So prime has the most marbling, so it's super tender and flavorful. Choice has a little bit less marbling, but it's still tender and juicy. And then select is the most lean with the less marbling, and is a great pick if you're watching your fat intake, but also want a good quality beef. Um, Lastly is seafood. So seafood is another great addition here. So fish like salmon, tuna, and trout, they're really rich in those heart healthy fats, those unsaturated fats, the heart healthy ones we want more of in our diet. Shrimp and cod are also great lean, high protein options here. The recommendation is to include fish in your diet about twice a week. Frozen fillets are a great option here as well. And they tend to be a little more affordable than the fresh options. And then some RD faves here in the meat section. So as I was talking about with the ground beef, the different percentages that they have, you'll see listed out there. Again, the leaner it is, the more expensive it's going to be. So even if you chose an 80-20, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for your health. Again, it's all about variety and having a balance there. We see I took a picture of the fish options there, so lots of fish options available in the market. And then I took a picture. I like buying these frozen chicken tenders. They have chicken breasts as well if you prefer that. But these are great because you can buy a big bag. Like this is a 3-pound bag, and I think it's like maybe $10-ish at the grocery store. But it's nice because you can fall out just a little bit at a time, and just use what you need for the meal. You can cut it up, shred it, use it for different recipes, but that's another good option there as well. All right, let's move on to the deli. So this section can be super convenient for quick proteins, cheeses, ready to eat options. But again, it's another place that sodium and additives can sneak in. So let's kind of talk through a few different things to keep in mind. In general, the fewer ingredients, the better. So freshly sliced meats are usually lower in sodium and additives than pre-packaged meats or like pre-made sandwiches are. But again, that being said, convenience does have its place. So like rotisserie chicken, grilled chicken strips, those can make for a great, quick, balanced meal when you're short on time. If pre-packaged fits in your budget or works better with your schedule, it's totally fine. You just want to, again, kind of maybe look for those lower sodium options or no added nitrates on the label. With the deli too, you'll see a lot of prepared foods like pasta salads, chicken salads, sandwiches, and these are great options for busy days, but again, they do tend to run higher in sodium and fat. So if you like more of those convenience options, try pairing them in smaller portions or kind of just doing them on the occasion when you are in a pinch, and having some lighter sides like some veggies or fresh produce to kind of balance things out. Some RD faves here we have in the deli section. So I love these little snack packs. I think the Texas shaped ones are really cute. So that's why I took a picture of them. But there's other options out there as well. But these are really great. Again, you do pay for the convenience here, but these are great kind of on the go snacks whenever you need something fresh sliced turkey meat and chicken. are great for sandwiches or wraps. I didn't take a picture of it, but like hummus or tzatziki is also another great option you can find here. Is like a flavorful dip that you can pair with veggies or put on a wrap for some extra protein. I took a picture of like string cheese. We'll talk more about cheese when we get to dairy, but the kind of the natural low fat cheese is always a great snack option as well. So the thing to remember with the deli is that it can fit into your balanced routine. We just kind of need to keep an eye on sodium and saving the convenience options for when it helps us to eat well and when we're short on time. All right, let's go to kind of the pantry aisles or like middle of the store. So you've probably heard the phrase to shop the perimeter of the grocery store, as is everything that healthy kind of lives on the outside and everything on the inside is off limits. But that is so far from the truth. We can find plenty of nourishing, budget-friendly staples in the middle of the aisle as well. Things like whole grains, beans, canned goods, nuts and seeds, even frozen items. We'll talk about frozen items. Those are things that can make a balanced, realistic, and sustainable meal for us. The key is not to avoid these aisles, but just to know what to look for. So briefly, we're going to talk about the nutrition label. Again, lots of things we could talk about here. I'm just going to kind of hit some of the highlights, but if you have a specific question, drop it in the chat. But with the nutrition label, the first thing we want to pay attention to is the serving size. Now, we're not limited to the serving size, but it does give us an idea of what all these numbers represent. So if you're eating more than the serving size, these numbers are going to go up. And of course, if you're eating less, they'll go down. So again, we're not limited to that serving size, but it gives us an idea of what these numbers represent. Now, with the nutrition label, we want to kind of look for fiber. Higher fiber options, especially for like bread, cereals, pastas. These can help with helping us stay satisfied, but also maintaining our blood sugar and digestive health. Another thing to really pay attention to is added sugar specifically. We want to check this line to spot where some sugars might sneak in. So things like cereals, sauces, snacks, anything that might have some added sugar to it. We want to try to look for those lower sugar options because that can help keep our energy more steady throughout the day and not make us crash so bad. Again, sodium, I know I've talked about sodium a little bit already, but this one adds up fast, especially if we're buying more of those convenience options or maybe canned soups or sauces. And so if we're watching our sodium, we kind of want to look for things that are around like 140 milligrams or less per serving, or looking again for those kind of no salt added or low sodium versions. So instead of thinking that the middle of the aisle is this bad zone that's off limits, we want to think of it kind of more so where convenience meets nutrition. So with kind of just paying attention to the label, it can be very practical and affordable options that help us build some balanced meals and snacks. So with that being said, let's kind of walk through some different highlights in the pantry section here. And first, we're going to start with chips and crackers. Nothing wrong with having these around. It's just about finding the options that give you the most satisfaction and fiber. So ideally, we kind of want to look for words like baked or whole grain varieties, checking the ingredient list for things like whole wheat or brown rice or even seeds closer to the top of the ingredient list. And a good goal for these kind of foods is anything that has like 2 to 3 grams of fiber per serving, and of course, ideally a shorter ingredient list. And again, remember, you pay for convenience. So like those single serve snack packs can be super helpful for portion control or busy days when you need something quick on the go, but they do tend to cost a little bit more. So just keeping that in mind. A few RD faves in the section that we really like. Wheat thins and Triscuits, but again, kind of the hint of salt or the lower sodium options. And then I love these Harvest Snap Peas. These are great source of not only protein, but then also fiber as well. Next up, we'll talk about kind of bread, pasta, and rice. So these foods I feel like can get a bad rap. They're often seen in diet culture as like bad foods that we shouldn't be eating. But the truth is, these foods offer a lot of great nutrients that our bodies need that can also be really affordable. So again, the key with these kinds of foods is looking for fiber. So the more fiber and more whole grains, the better. For bread, we want to kind of aim for around that 3 grams of fiber per slice. And again, checking the ingredient list for those terms like whole wheat or whole grain. With pasta and rice, you can try rotating in different varieties. So there's whole grain varieties, there's lentil or brown rice versions when possible. But again, if you don't like any of those options, don't waste your money on them. I think they can taste really great, especially if you season them appropriately. But don't waste your money if you're not going to eat it. White varieties still have their place. Protein pasta is also another great option here. I didn't mention a second ago, but protein pasta, not only does it have more protein, but it also tends to have more fiber than regular pasta and even more fiber than whole wheat pasta, which is kind of interesting. Some more, oh, sorry, let me go back and talk about these faves. So English muffins are great. Easy breakfast. You can make breakfast sandwiches out of them or put some peanut butter on. I personally love the carb sense tortillas, but the carb balance are great because again, they're really good fiber options in these. And then this like rustic oven is like, again, has the grains and seeds for a little more fiber. And it tastes really good too. And then some other faves. I personally, again, I love the minute brown rice, kind of the ready rice options for taking to lunch because you can just pop them in the microwave and add some chicken and some veggies to it. And you've got a great balanced meal there. The Dave's Killer Bread is always a good option. I love all of their products. And then the protein pasta, like I said, it's got a little more protein and a little more fiber than just regular pasta. Okay, so cereal is another big one here in the pantry aisle, and there's so many different choices that can really range from more like dessert cereals to more like nutrient dense ones. But again, the thing with cereals is that fiber. So looking for those higher fiber options. With these, kind of that 3 to 5 grams per serving. And then also with sugars, like I said, we need to be careful of more of those dessert cereals. So choosing ones that have a little bit lower added sugar. Ideally things that are like 8 to 10 grams per serving. So, with cereal, like I said, the fiber and the sugar, and then pairing it too with like milk or Greek yogurt to add in some protein and balance to make it a little bit of a more satisfying meal or snack. These are ones that I personally really enjoy. I love the Kashi Go. It's got 10 grams of fiber and 10 grams of protein, so it's very satisfying. This Cheerios Heart Nut Medley is a great source of fiber too, not super high on added sugar. And then the Kind granola is a great option too. Again, good fiber. The peanut butter one there has like 10 grams of protein, so really great options to again pair with some yogurt for a healthy balanced snack. And the big takeaway with all of the pantry section is keeping an eye on the fiber and the added sugars. This is also a great place to kind of stock up on some different staples that you enjoy. And remember that balance matters more than perfection. So doing a variety and doing what works best for you and your family. Okay, let's head on over to the dairy and eggs. So this area is a great source. It can be a great source of protein and calcium and other nutrients that support our muscles and our bone strength and just our overall energy. But there's a lot of options here too. So we're going to kind of break down some of the main points here. First up is store brand versus name brand. I'm going to talk more about this again in a little bit, but the secret with this is that nutritionally, they're pretty much the same. Store brand, milk, yogurt, cheese, eggs, really any store brand item, typically, not all the time, but typically comes from the same manufacturer as the name brand product does. It's just a different label. So if you're looking to save money, this is a great place that you can make that swap without really sacrificing anything nutritionally. With dairy foods, we do need to, again, look out for those added sugars. So things like plain milk and yogurt naturally contain sugar in the form of lactose, and that's completely normal. What we want to look out for, again, is specifically those added sugars. Again, in like the yogurts, maybe things like coffee creamers or plant-based milks as well. When you're looking at the added sugars, I again kind of recommend that 8 to 10 grams per serving when possible. And if you don't like plain yogurt, you can just buy the plain version and sweeten it yourself, with a little drizzle of honey and some fruit in there. That way you can kind of control the sweetness and how much is added in and still make it a great tasting balanced meal. Um, let's also talk about real quick 2 different milk options because there is a ton out there. I was actually at the grocery store yesterday and I noticed there was now something called banana milk. Never seen it before. It was kind of interesting. Um, but like there's so many different milk options. So with cow's milk naturally provides a higher quality protein, about 8 grams per serving. Also just naturally has some calcium and vitamin D. So this one is great, especially for kids, but also if you're an athlete or anyone who can tolerate dairy and enjoys it. Soy milk is most similar to cow's milk, nutritionally. It has roughly the same amount of protein and it's typically fortified with calcium and vitamin D. Other plant-based milks like almond milk, coconut milk, these can be great for people that don't tolerate dairy or maybe don't prefer dairy options, but they are a lot lower in protein and may contain added sugars and oils. So if you prefer the plant-based options, again, that is totally fine. Just looking and being mindful of the ones that maybe say unsweetened and fortified with calcium and vitamin D. Cheese is also another really great source of protein and calcium, but a little bit goes a long way. So with cheese, we have to be mindful about portions because it is very dense in calories and fat and sodium. A good visual guide for cheese is roughly around 1 to 2 ounces, or roughly the size of 2 dice. Um, Cheese like feta, Parmesan, and processed slices tend to run higher in sodium. So again, being mindful of that sodium label. And if you're watching your saturated fat, trying to stick to those reduced fat versions. But keeping in mind too that the reduced fat cheese does melt a little differently and might have a little bit different texture, but overall it's going to be, in my opinion at least, roughly the same flavor. Okay, so a few dietitian favorites here in the dairy section. Plain Greek yogurt. I know we talked about this one a second ago, but plain Greek yogurt is a great high protein option, and you can kind of sweeten it yourself, like I said, with some honey or some fruit in it. But if you don't prefer plain Greek yogurt, Oikios and Chobani are really great brands as well. Typically wanting to look for that zero added sugar option with those. And then store brand milk. So this Mootopia is a option for, it's the HEB version for the Fairlife. More protein, less sugar. That's a great option as well. And I didn't take a picture of it, but cottage cheese is another great one in this section. That's a good source of protein if you're interested and if you like cottage cheese. So the main thing with the dairy section is focusing on what fits your budget, but also keeping an eye out on those added sugars and remembering that both dairy and plant-based options can be nourishing. It's just figuring out what works best for you and what you enjoy. Let's briefly talk about eggs real quick. So again, like a second ago, store brand versus name brand, really no huge difference other than price. Now there is a lot of questions about the pasture raised or maybe the cage free eggs that you might see. These pasture raised or cage free hens have more outdoor access and a more varied diet, which can slightly change the fat composition of the eggs. But other than that, there's really no huge difference nutritionally speaking. Regular eggs are just as rich in protein and other nutrients. So if you enjoy maybe the flavor or again want to support the practices of cage free, totally fine. That's great. But just know that you don't have to do that for it to be healthy. You can still buy the conventional eggs. All right, let's jump to the frozen section now. So a few different things to kind of talk about here. I feel like this section is kind of underrated for ways that you can save money and reduce waste and keep a variety of nutritious food on hand. With frozen food, again, the store brand versus name brand. So often these are made by the same companies. So really with the name brand, you're paying more for the packaging and the marketing, but quality wise, there's not a big difference. So don't hesitate to go for the store brand if you don't mind, if you want to save money and don't maybe mind a little bit different taste there. Frozen foods, another place that sodium can sneak in. So plain frozen produce, just like broccoli or berries or peas, usually don't have any sodium at all. But if you buy like frozen meals or seasoned vegetables or have sauces, that can add up really quickly. If you're choosing convenience meals, those are again another really high source of sodium. So if you can, try to find ones that have roughly like 600 milligrams of sodium per serving. But you know, when possible, balancing those options with the lower sodium choices the rest of the day. The biggest perk, in my opinion at least, of the frozen section is the variety and the shelf life, because you can keep a mix of frozen vegetables, fruits, and sides on hand that you'll always have when you are short on time and just need something quick and easy to heat up. How freezing vegetables works is they are frozen at their peak freshness, so they keep their nutrients and taste, but they're great to add into stir fries and smoothies and make for a great quick side. And they can cut on food waste, which ultimately saves money over time too. Um, okay, some RD phase. There was a lot in the frozen section, so I tried to fit the main ones on here. But again, frozen mixed veggies, these are great to toss in with pastas or rice bowls or omelets or just have on the side. I personally like buying the chopped like onion and green peppers because that just can save you a little bit of time when you're cooking and trying to make a quick meal. Frozen fruit, lots of options there. Ideal again for smoothies or topping with yogurt or even just eating by themselves. Frozen edamame is another great one. It's a great high protein snack, or you can top it with salads or and eat in a stir fry. I also included these because I see someone ask for like frozen meal options. So personally, I love the Amy's bowls, or I guess Amy's is the brand name, and then the Healthy Choice, specifically more so the Power Bowls. These tend to be a little less in sodium, a little less in saturated fat, and still be balanced, higher protein options as well. Again, with this freezing section, it's important to be mindful of the extra sodium and fat with those sauces and glazes. So when in doubt, go for the plain version and just season it yourself. But again, doing what's going to work best for you and your family. Okay, last few sections here. I know we kind of went through those quickly, but hopefully that was some good some good advice for everyone to kind of look through. I did want to add a few little extra products that we like because there's so much in the grocery store. It's hard to narrow it down. So I wanted to include ones specifically that focused on protein. So I personally, again, I love these HEB protein bars. They have a great source of fiber and protein in them, and there's chocolate, which who doesn't love chocolate? These Jimmy Dean turkey sausage patties, they're frozen. They're a great option for when you need a quick breakfast and need to heat something up and go. These Jif to go containers, so they've got like this squeezable one and then little to go cups. These are a great option, even like to keep at your desk that you can pair with like crackers or fruit for an extra source of protein for snacks. The Starkist brand, they've got this canned tuna, and then they also have this like chicken in a pouch that's really nice for again adding to a salad or even just eating with some crackers. You can kind of season it however you like, but these are really great protein options. And then beans as well. Beans are another great protein option. So, you know, if you are trying to do less meat or are vegetarian, beans are a really great source of plant-based protein. But again, looking for, if you're buying the canned options, those no salt added or low sodium versions. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it's always good to leave room for the fun finds that you might discover. So these are some ones that as we were walking through the grocery store, we had found. So I showed that Mootopia, which is HEB's version of Fairlife. They now make ice cream out of it. Haven't tried it yet, so I can't tell you if it tastes good or not, but I do want to try it. It's like a protein ice cream. Kodiak is always a great brand. They have lots of high protein, quick, easy options. These were some frozen like pancake sandwiches that looked really good. The fruit splits are always great for pairing with some kind of protein or when you need kind of a quick snack on the go. This nutso, I've never seen it before. This is my first time seeing it, but what I can tell, it's like it's a nut butter made from a bunch of different nuts blended. It looks really good, but again, I've never tried it. So if someone does, you'll have to let us know if it's good. And then of course, Pop Tarts. Pop Tarts are always a fun one to have on hand. Brandy, our owner, she loves Pop Tarts and actually named her cat Pop Tart. And so she wanted to include this picture in here as well. All right, and then last thing here, we'll briefly touch on some money saving tips and tricks. So when you are shopping for the best price, it's important to check more than just the listed price. So when you're looking at the shelf tag, typically they have the pre-calculated price per unit, or the unit price is what it's called. And if it isn't listed out, you can usually calculate it yourself by just dividing the total cost of the item by the number of units. So like if it's per pound or per item or per ounce, you would like, let's just say there's a box of pasta that's $5 and it's a 10-ounce box, right? So you do 5 divided by the 10 and you get 50 cents per ounce. So comparing those unit prices can help you find the best value regardless of the package size. Again, store brand, we've already talked about this one. This is a great way to save money without sacrificing a bunch of quality or nutrition for that matter. Buying in bulk. So buying in bulk may cost a little bit more upfront, but it can save money over time. You do need to be careful not to buy a large bulk package just because it is a lower unit price if you're not going to use it all before it expires. So things like yogurt or cheeses probably aren't great to buy in bulk, but more of those shelf stable like beans or cereals or crackers, things like that. Eat with the seasons. We kind of talked about this one with the produce, but this is a great way to kind of keep variety in your diet. But typically, seasonal produce tends to be cheaper and is put on sale a little more often. Freezing fruits and veggies when they start to wilt. So, kind of going back to those bananas we talked about, like if bananas are starting to go bad and you don't really want to eat them right away, chop them up, put them in the freezer, and add them to your smoothie or some yogurt for later in the week. And then, of course, shopping deals and using coupons. Most grocery stores are great about putting these online and having a virtual ad that you can look at. And you can even use this to kind of meal plan and figure out what your meals are for the week. So, all right. And then, real quick, I want to just kind of practice. So, out of these two, which is the better deal? We've got the bulk size name brand Honey Nut Cheerios for $5.97. Or we've got the store brand organic Cheerios for $3.68. So type in the chat, which do y'all think is the better deal? Yeah, Honey Nut Cheerios. Yeah, everyone's putting Cheerios. So the Cheerios is going to be the better deal because even though it costs a little bit more upfront, if we look at the unit price, it's cheaper overall. It's 22 cents per ounce, whereas we see the HEB version is 26 per ounce. They are this I screenshotted this from the HEB app. So HEB is great about having these listed on the store and in the app. All right, and let's do this one real quick too. So I was talking about Mootopia and Fairlife. So Fairlife, we've got $4.97, whereas Mootopia is $5.18. Mootopia, yep, everyone's putting the HEB. So this one's kind of a weird one, because usually the store brand, the listed price is cheaper, but this one, the listed price is a little more expensive than the name brand. But the unit price is, again, what we're looking at. And the unit price is 8 cents an ounce. Fairlife is 10. So it may not seem like it when you're buying it in the store, but you do end up saving money with this one. And then I did include with this the nutrition facts just for comparison to see that they're pretty much the exact same. So you're getting the same product, but saving a little bit money with the HEB version. Okay, so now that we've kind of come to the end of our presentation, I want to know who got value out of today's presentation. Put an emoji or type in me. I love it. I also want to know if you don't mind sharing what resonated most with you. If you want to drop that in the chat while you're at it, because I love your feedback. I love the emojis too. Those are fun. Yeah, great. I'm so excited. I love all this. We truly, yeah, the label reading. Thank you. I'm glad that you got some good stuff out of that. Yeah, I love this. Yeah, so I really appreciate y'all taking the time to be here today. It means so much. And the best way to keep this going is to actually apply what we've talked about together in our one-on-one sessions. So as I mentioned, I'm part of a team here called Basic Balanced Nutrition. We are a team of registered dietitians who actually help people to gain confidence with their food and ditch the restrictive mindset. So whether you're trying to improve your energy, support a health condition, maybe like diabetes or some kind of gut issues, or you just want to feel more in control with food, we've got you. We focus on real life strategies that actually work. So we focus on meal ideas, having accountability, supplements when it's appropriate, and just helping you build a solid foundation that you can maintain long term. And the best part about it is no cost to you. So your Texas A&M insurance covers our services 100%. So unlimited visits for our one-on-one sessions, group sessions, grocery store tours, all of it. And if you got any value out of today, this is your next step, to go ahead and book an appointment with us. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us continuing to make an impact. It would really mean the world to us, and we'd love to help you take that next step toward feeling your best self. And I see someone said they've already been working with Face for a few months, and it's nice to have more reiteration. Exactly, like that is what we are here for. So how this works, we try to make it super simple. So you can meet with us one-on-one. You can come to group sessions. We have monthly master classes, and we even do like real life grocery store tours. So literally walking down the aisle with you to kind of show you how to shop in a more balanced way and making those recommendations that are more personalized towards you. And remember, like I said, these are all covered with your insurance. So you can get that support and that accountability without paying anything out of pocket. And honestly, booking your first session helps us doing what we love, which is supporting Aggies just like you. We're also local. So we are right here in College Station. We have offices in Huntsville and Conroe, and then we also do virtual sessions. So you can meet us from anywhere. We love being a part of the Aggie community and supporting people in our own backyard. We're not some big online company. We're real life dietitians who live and work where you do. So again, I saw so many people put in emojis and type in me. So if you got any value out of today, the next best step is to book your first session. It's completely covered, and it's truly the best way to support what we do and start making progress on your goals. We'd love to meet you and get to know your story and help you feel your absolute best. So before we wrap up and get to the questions, my last little favor I have to ask is that if today resonated with you, to tell at least one person you know. So maybe it's a coworker who's been struggling with energy, a friend who's trying to manage their blood sugar, just a quick text to say like, hey, these dietitians are awesome and they're covered by our insurance, which could go such a long way. So we are local, built on connection and word of mouth. So your support really makes a difference. And I know some of y'all are asking, and I see someone put in the link already. So I'm going to also put in here links for our website, but also our Instagram and our Facebook. You can connect with us that way as well. But again, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. And I now want to open the floor to any questions that y'all had. I noticed some as we were going through.
Hey, Reagan, let me read those off for you. That way
Perfect.
you
That would
don't
be
have to
super
try to
helpful.
go find them. So you
Yes.
kind of touched on this one, but what are some good alternative options for protein other than meat, as it is quite expensive?
Yes, it is quite expensive. So if you are trying to find a meat alternative, like I said a second ago, beans are a really great one. Quinoa is another great option. Trying to think of some other good ones. Soy, if you like, again, the edamame is a good high protein option. tofu. I'm personally not a tofu person, but some people love it, and if you cook it the right way, it can be delicious. So tofu is another great option that's typically a little cheaper. Trying to think of some other big ones. Nuts, seeds, nut butters, those are also really great options that tend to be a little more affordable as well.
Awesome. Is there a big difference that we should be concerned about between wild versus farmed fish?
No, so kind of the same thing that goes back to that, like the grass-fed meat and the conventional meat.
Mhm.
You know, there might be slight differences in, how and like the fat content of the fish, but nutritionally, there's not a huge difference that you would need to worry about it. Again, if it's the cost, it does cost a little bit more. So if the cost is worth it to you and you want to support those certain practices, totally great, nothing wrong with that. But you don't have to choose those options if it doesn't fit in your budget. They're just as nutritious to buy the conventional ones.
Awesome. When it comes to sodium, is there a certain gram, milligram number that we should be concerned about of either too much or too little?
Yeah, so typically I recommend looking for things, and again, it does kind of depend on what you're buying. So if you're buying more of like an ingredient or like a snack food, I typically shoot for like 140 milligrams, more or less. If it's a little more than that, not a huge deal, but roughly that 140 milligrams. But if you're buying like a convenience meal, because I know we talked a lot about like frozen meals or prepackaged meals in the deli, that number, of course, we can go a little higher. And so I typically shoot for around that 600 or less. Again, more or less is okay, but kind of the 600 is for those meals, and then the 140 for the snacks and ingredients.
Perfect. So when it comes to eggs, this is kind of a two-part question,
Okay.
but it does seem to be that some folks are noticing some pretty big differences in prices when it comes to brands. So what are some of those nutrients that they should be looking for or watching out for? And then how does it like the full regular real egg compare to like the liquid egg option that
Oh,
you can get in a carton?
that's a great question. So, in regards to like the price of eggs, Um, truthfully, I'm not exactly sure the brands, for brands, maybe they charge a little more based again on like the practices of how they raise their hens or maybe where they're coming from that factors in cost. But when you're looking for nutritionally with eggs, being mindful of the fat. So with specifically like saturated fat, we kind of said that was the fat we want to really be mindful of in our diet. So that saturated fat, being mindful that it doesn't have, I would say maybe no more than like 3 to 4 grams per serving. And then the protein with eggs, because eggs are another great source of protein that we can get without buying meat. And those roughly have like 7 grams of protein. So those would be the main things to look for, is that fat, that saturated fat, and then the protein. And then what was the question about the liquid eggs you said, Madeline?
Just how would that compare nutritionally to traditional egg?
Yeah, I think again, I know you can buy like liquid egg or like liquid egg white. So the liquid eggs nutritionally, I don't think have any difference. It's basically just a bunch of cracked eggs in a carton. So nutritionally, there shouldn't be any difference. If you're buying just the egg whites, they would have less fat because it's not including that yolk where most of the fat is in the egg. So that nutritionally, the fat would kind of be the big difference there.
Perfect. Peanut butter, powdered peanut butter compared to regular peanut butter.
Yeah. So powdered peanut butter is um, basically just like a bunch of ground up nuts powdered together. And so what the benefit of the powdered peanut butter is, it doesn't have a lot of fat in it. So most peanut butters typically have like 10 to 14 grams, depending on the brand, like 10 to 14 grams of total fat per serving. But again, when we're looking at labels, we want to be more mindful of that saturated fat. So typically peanut butters are higher in total fat, but not super high in saturated fat. With the powdered peanut butter, you're kind of losing fat altogether. There's not as much total fat with powdered peanut butter. Um, so how powdered peanut butter works is you add water to it, and it's supposed to give it that kind of consistency of regular peanut butter. In my opinion, it's not the same taste wise. So if nutritionally, if you are trying to be mindful of your intake, your fat intake, powdered peanut butter can be a great way to go. it does have good flavor, but the texture is a little off. So, you can still kind of get the flavor of the peanut butter, but the texture might be different. But if the price doesn't work because powdered peanut butter, ugh, like tongue twister. Powdered peanut butter is a little more pricey. You don't have to buy it. You can still be healthy and be balanced with regular peanut butter.
Perfect. And then what is the recommendation around like sugar and added sugar, particularly when we're looking at snacks?
So for those, I always say with because again, you're going to have total sugar, but again, it's more so that added sugar we're paying attention to. I would say roughly like 8 to 10 grams per serving. Um, Trying to be a little less than that if we can, but roughly that range is fine. If you're looking at something that's, maybe like 12 grams of added sugar, that's no big deal. But if it's maybe like 20 grams of added sugar, you might want to find find a different option there. But again, doing these more for our everyday products. If you are gonna eat dessert, like eat dessert. We know dessert is going to have more than 8 grams of added sugar, and that's okay. But more for our day-to-day products that we're eating more regularly and having more consistently, that 8 to 10 grams is typically the range we want to look for.
Perfect. I think I got through all the questions, but there was so many great chats. I may have missed anything. So if there's any question you want to ask, you drop it in the chat or be brave and unmute yourself. You have about 4 minutes left of Reagan's attention. So speak now or forever hold your questions. Or book an appointment and work with one of your dietitians one-on-one and ask all the
Yes,
questions.
that's what we're there for. Answer all the questions.
Going once, going twice. Sold. Okay. Reagan, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, of
It's clear by
course.
the chat that people gained so much valuable information. For
Thank
anyone
you.
who missed my spiel at the beginning, we did record this session. So once we edit it, and we will post it on our Living Well YouTube page. If you registered for the event, you'll receive an email from us about that as well. And please remember that with our insurance here at A&M, working with someone at Basic Balance Nutrition is not going to cost you anything. So definitely take advantage of that as you move through this journey. And we will see you guys again. And Reagan, thank you again so
Yes,
much. We appreciate it.
thank you. Y'all have a good evening. It's good talking to y'all.
Yes. All right. Goodbye, everybody.